Okay, my name is Mike Godicker, and I'm with,
Melanie Ray Stewart.
and we're both from the Silver Crow Method, Social Network Shaman, and Silver Crow Apothecary.
Yes.
And today we have a podcast in our series for the Silver Crow Method, and we'll be talking about the architecture of manipulation, profiles,
Wow.
patterns, and the relational field.
There is an architecture to manipulation.
Yep, there is.
Who knew? Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been talking the last few times about the structure of agreements that lead to cords, that feed the
Mhm.
agreements, that then create blockages, intrusions, and then basically create the patterns in the nervous system. So now we're going to take all this stuff and we're going to take a look at what are the different types of clients that I've run into in the past, um, or people that I've worked with, aspects of myself, aspects of other folks. And
Mhm.
I basically take this and turn it into the profiles, because when we do the training for the level 2 certification, we need to make sure that we recognize what the types are so that we can figure out what are the agreements and chords and stuff
Mhm.
that we need to help them to release, right?
Makes sense.
Okay, so when we go into this, why does this model exist? It's because we need what is called precision diagnosis for what is the external energetic fields. So when we talk about this, agreements don't form in isolation. They form in response to specific people in specific relational configurations or situations.
Mhm.
And understanding who was doing the encoding or the creation gives the practitioner, us, a way to diagnose with more precision. So what the profiles that we're talking about here are specific agreement architectures. They're survival programs formed under early threat, maintained because they were sufficient to keep the person operational or safe,
Mhm.
while generating significant damage in those around them. So what these profiles are not they are not psychiatric diagnoses, moral condemnations, or excuses. Real individuals rarely fit one profile cleanly. The value is identifying the primary pattern that shaped the relational field for that specific person. And when we talk about our role as practitioners, we need to diagnose what is installed in the client system and not to label the person. The profile is the context here. So the
Right.
client's agreements, cords, and blocks are the focus that we have. And why this changes the work for us is with the profile context, we as practitioners know exactly what to clear, why it's there, and why it has been so persistent in the past. So when we talk about the other models, models M3 through M12, of this level 2 certification that we
Mhm.
are trying to intertwine with the podcast a little bit, it
Yes.
becomes faster, more precise, and more durable.
Mhm.
And this is more like the science around why we do the social network shaman and the Silver Crow method, and how this relates to psychological perspectives. We're not clinicians, but we use academia and we use science to understand from the shamanic perspective and from the psychiatric perspective what is the medicine that we can use to identify the nervous system and stop these things.
Wow. And so these podcasts will also be learning pieces to watch in tandem when people are doing their practitioner um, models.
Right. So they're not only useful to get like an introduction to what is the Silver Crow method and what is behind that, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
science around this. People, sometimes scoff at when you talk about shamanic healing and journey work, and a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of academic research, especially in the last 5 years, with
Mhm.
PTSD clients, in psychological perspectives with psychiatrists, that is real work that was done with shamanic drumming, with journey work, with all these
Mhm.
different things, with anxiety, with depression. And there's a lot of,
Trauma.
yeah, and trauma. There's a
Mhm.
lot of real research that's out there. It's more qualitative, meaning that the data to specifically prove A to B is not always entirely clear, but you do see that there's an influence. And
Mhm.
when you're trying to help someone, the influence that something is possible and happens and creates healing, that's much more important than focusing in on, well, is it 20%? Is it 50%? Is it 100%? If
Right.
someone doesn't have a solution to something, 50% is still better than nothing, right? If
Correct.
someone's suffering chronic depression and anxiety, 60 or 70% is a lot better than nothing, than 0%, and without using drugs. So I think this is a very important thing to talk about. And it comes too short sometimes in the podcast, because there's people that look at these podcasts, they think it's a lot of mumbo jumbo, and that's BS. And I want to set the record straight with this. So we'll start off with the first profile, that is the narcissist. So when we talk about narcissism, it's the self that can't afford to feel its own wound. So what does that mean? The core agreement for this profile is, I'm exceptional. If I acknowledge my limitations, I will be exposed to the wound and I cannot survive. My worth must be continuously confirmed from the outside because I have no stable internal source of it.
So that's the core wound.
That's one of the core agreements. It's split up into different sections, but that's the core one. So I'm exceptional. If I acknowledge my limitations, I will be exposed to the wound I cannot survive from. My worth must be continuously confirmed from the outside, from external, because I have no stable internal source of it inside, because lack of love or whatever. So what this installs in targets: worth is conditional on maintaining a narcissist's mood and self-image. Honest expression is dangerous. Love is transactional. Progressive erasure of authentic self-assessment, like responsibility, stuff like that. So when we see this in some of my past folks that I worked with, that chord was created in basically a chord of performance demand. So the target's energetic field is continuously required to generate validation. This chord is exhausting in exactly the way work without rest is exhausting. Energy flows outward without adequate return. When we talk about the intergenerational transmission, the narcissistic wound traces to a parent who could not see the child as separate. The child either becomes narcissistic or identifies with the requirement, or becomes the narcissist's target, accommodates it. Both of these paths are available to the next generation. So when we talk about these things, this is the next level. There's multiple dimensions to this. So another reason why getting rid of agreements and cords and stuff like that is so important is because if I'm a parent and I don't do this work on myself, I inherit all this crap to the next generation, to my kids. And if I don't change for myself, which is the reason why I should be, at the very least, I should try to attempt that, because I don't want to inherit that to the next generation. Right. And this can go on for multiple generations, especially with abuse, trauma, and stuff like that. Like things like alcoholism, etc. That's something that's inherited from one generation to another. And it's been clinically proven that people that come from alcoholic parents, that their genes are much more susceptible to be to need the craving for alcohol than those kids that do not come from alcoholic parents. Parents. Yeah, that was a good one.
Sometimes the English and German.
Yeah.
Going between two languages.
Right. The second profile that we're talking about is the abandoner, and this one gets really interesting. So this is an accountability-free system, meaning I don't accept responsibility. The most thoroughly treated profile that I've seen so far in most people. So when I think about what is the core agreement for this, it's I cannot be responsible for any failure or any pain. If I am, the shame is going to destroy me. Therefore, all consequences are caused by others. All blame belongs to others. All departures are the other person's fault. Let that sink in for a second. And that's a form of manipulation too. So what does this install in people? So chronic self-doubt, the agreement that their own perceptions are unreliable, progressive erosion of confidence in their own reality. For children, I am not enough to be worth staying for. One of the most treatment-resistant agreements in the social, the Silver Crow method framework. the most treatment resistant of agreements. So chronic self-doubt in targets of these people, meaning us when we're on the receiving end of that. And that's why when children from this perspective have issues, it's extremely, well, not extremely difficult, but it's harder to get rid of those agreements because the treatment is resistant by its very nature. So what are the cords that are created from this one, this profile? It's basically reality distortion. What does that mean? So the target's nervous system continues to run the abandoner's version of events, even after the relationship ends. It produces guilt, self-blame, and the compulsion to justify their own choices as if still in the relationship. When we talk about the intergenerational transmission, children either become abandoners themselves, so they identify with the defense, or they become the perfect target for abandoners in adult life. Because their agreement that they are not enough makes them recognize the abandoner's field as familiar. Both paths are the same wound.
Yeah.
And that's the kicker. So when you're like this and you inherit that to your kids, they are more susceptible to someone else coming in and doing this. And there's many examples of abandoner type personalities that use this to their advantage to manipulate people to do things they don't want to do or shouldn't do. That's heavy.
Yes.
So when we talk about the abandoner, it goes further. So the family disillusion and accountability-free system, the abandoner does not experience themselves as avoiding responsibility. They experience themselves as accurately perceiving that others are responsible. The perceptual distortion is complete and absolutely sincere. So when the abandoner is in a partnership, every conflict resolves the direction. The partner is blamed. Every problem has an external cause. Over time, the partner progressively loses confidence in their own perception, begins to doubt whether their concerns are reasonable, because the abandoner's version of events is delivered with complete sincerity and consistent force. The partner may come to believe that they are the problem, because the abandoner's agreement requires it. Yeah. That's some pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So when the family ends, the abandoner does not grieve the family they leave. The grief requires acknowledging that something valuable existed, which implies the question of whether their behavior contributed to its loss. Instead, they re-narrativize. The marriage was never good. The partner was always difficult. The departure was self-preservation. Children are loved in the abstract but not prioritized in practice. So the abandoner will justify all their actions and make sure that they're never responsible because of the agreements that they had in their past because of whatever abusive relationship they came from, I assume. And often I see that with parents that had these different types of issues. But the thing is, they don't prioritize the kids either when that family ends. So, but let's talk about the kids, the other side. What is installed in children from the abandoner? When things get hard, people who love you leave. The foundational agreement about love's reliability. Conflict is resolved by making the other person responsible. Conflict is resolved by making the other person responsible. So that's a direct transmission of the abandoner's primary agreement. I am not worth consistent love. From broken commitments and inconsistent contact from the abandoner. My experience and perception do not matter. From being used as a witness by the abandoner's victimhood narrative. Think about that. My experience and perception do not matter because the kids are being used as a witness to the abandoner's victimhood. narrative. They're the victim. Everyone else is at fault, except for them. This is toxic. It's really toxic. I am not enough to be chosen. And that's the most treatment-resistant installation. Requires subcortical work, which means we have to work deep in the brain with multiple sessions of agreements and cord release. Because this one goes really deep. So if you notice when we talk about things, when we have our live sessions, I talk about having at least 6 sessions that you book. This is one of the reasons why. Because this, I am not enough to be chosen, that agreement, that takes time. It takes layers. And if you think if you're like 25 or 30 or 40 or 50, how many years that one specific agreement constantly got reinforced. And it takes time to release that. Some people never release it because they don't do the work.
Right.
And they stay in that loop. And they destroy everything around them too. So the next profile, the covert manipulator, control through apparent helplessness. The core agreement here is, I am too fragile or too unwell to manage adult responsibility directly. My helplessness is what protects me and gives me power. If I become capable, I lose the control that helplessness provides. If you want to say something in between, then just let me know. Because you're like silent the whole time. I'm like,
well, you're really dropping some heavy stuff.
Yeah,
here.
I know.
Yeah, I have some family member that is the one that you're talking about right now. I'm just thinking about my relationship with them.
Well, often we have mixtures of different things. But I mean, But anyway, so what does this install in targets? The agreement that others' helplessness is your responsibility. The agreement that setting limits makes you cruel. The agreement that your own needs must always be subordinated to managing the manipulator's fragility. Chronic guilt, chronic overfunctioning, chronic depletion, anxiety. So the cord that's created is chronic obligation. So we as targets, our energy field is continuously in a state of overextension toward the manipulator's apparent need, leaving insufficient resources for our own life and development.
Yeah.
Heavy stuff, yeah. I'm sorry I have to do that on a Friday, but I mean, this is important work to understand these profiles, because this is a lot of stuff that we deal with. And the energy, when you meet up with people like this, it's intense. It's really intense, which is another reason why we do all the grounding work and stuff that we do. It's very important, because we want to deflect all this energy from getting to us.
Right.
So the intergenerational transmission for this profile is, it typically originates when direct expression of need was unsafe. Helpless or suffering-based communication was the only available pathway to having needs met, especially in abusive relationships. This transmits as a template of how relationships work in the future. So when they tried to express themselves directly to their parents and they were helpless, or it was suffering-based communication, then that's the only way that their needs were met, and they were taught that this is the way that normal communication is, right? And that's then how they think all relationships work.
Wow. That stuff gets locked in pretty early.
Yeah. All agreements do. I mean, the first attention agreements, that's the reason why the first attention agreements have a direct influence on the second attention agreements. So the next one is the martyr controller. Love weaponized as sacrifice and debt. The core agreement here is, my suffering on your behalf proves my love. Your independence constitutes ingratuity from my sacrifice. The more I suffer for you, the more you owe me. Control is maintained through continuous generation of debt.
Wow.
So what does this one install in targets, the people that are on the receiving end? Love requires suffering. Self-care is selflessness. It's selfish, excuse me, selfishness. Happiness is
Selfish.
only permissible when others are also happy.
Mm.
Joy in the face of another's pain is evidence of insufficient love or moral failure. And what are the different types of cords that are created here? It's a cord of guilt. The martyr's suffering is continuously transmitted into the target's nervous system as a signal that the target's own aliveness and happiness are causing harm to someone they love.
That's kind of sick.
It is sick.
Yeah.
And intergenerational transmission, one of the most culturally reinforced intergenerational transmissions, often presented and received as love, but installing a profound confusion between love and obligation that shapes all subsequent intimate relationships.
Yeah.
So here's where it's getting interesting. Hold on to your seats. The enmeshed parent, the self that uses the child as extension. The core agreement here is my child is part of me, not a separate person. Their choices and development either confirm or threaten my own self-concept. I cannot celebrate their separation because their individuation feels like abandonment. So what does this do to us on the targeting end of this? Having a self separate from the significant other is dangerous or disloyal. Authentic emotional expression will damage the relationship. Self-determination is selfish. Profound difficulty knowing where the self ends and the others begin.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry about that. Today's a really heavy session, but it's like the medicine's going in this direction, so I apologize for that. Yeah. So the chord that's created for this is a chord of merger, the most deeply intimate and most difficult to release chord in the curriculum that we teach, formed at the level of the child's original self-formation when they were young, very young, before any capacity for self-other differentiation was possible. Experience as identity rather than attachment. And the intergenerational transmission is enmeshment typically originates in the parent's own unmet attachment needs, usually from their own enmeshed or neglectful parent. The pattern transmits as a relational template. This is what closeness means to me. That's what I'm taught.
Yeah.
So when we talk about these wounds, these profiles, there's another dimension to this, without being too complex. So this is what I call the oscillation principle, how wounds change position through generations. The wound never repeats completely identically. It oscillates, it changes around, expressing in the next generation in the complementary position. So the child may become the profile or the perfect target of the profile. So generation 1 is, for instance, the original wound, the abandoner. Agreement, I cannot be responsible, shame will destroy me, others are always at fault. Generation 2 is the target, partner, or the child. Agreement is installed, I am not enough, love is conditional, people leave when I need too much. The third generation is then the oscillation. Child of the target may form either agreement, becomes abandoner, I will never be left, or becomes perfect target for abandoners, confirming the cycle.
Yeah.
You know, come to think of it, this is like more really of a training than it is just a real podcast.
It feels like it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, because I'm like talking about these things and I'm like, well, hang on a minute, you know, this is its own model for training.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hope that people are receptive to this because this is some really heavy shit. Excuse me.
It is. It's very interesting to see the connections.
So when we see the installation matrix, what I call what each profile installs in its targets, for the narcissist we have the agreement, worth is conditional. I must earn love through performance. Authentic self is dangerous. The chord is performance demand chord. Energy flows outward continuously to generate the supply. In the abandoner profile, the agreement is, I am not enough to be worth staying for. My perceptions are unreliable. The chord there is reality distortion chord. Target runs the abandoner's version of events even after separation. In the covert manipulator, the agreement is others' helplessness is my responsibility. Setting limits makes me cruel. The chord here is obligation chord. The target's energy field, or our field, chronically overextended toward the apparent need of the other partner or person. Martyr. Agreement is love requires suffering. Joy at another's expense makes me selfish. The chord is the guilt chord. The martyr's suffering is transmitted directly into the target's nervous system. And then the enmeshed parent. Agreement is, I am not a separate person. My authentic self is disloyal. The chord here is a merger chord, the deepest chord that we teach. Formed before self or other differentiation was possible. So, yeah, let me leave that for a second if you want to say something. Because you're like
I'm just keeping up with everything that you're dropping here.
Yeah, I know.
It's a lot of new stuff.
Yeah, the thing about this is the more I work with people and the more the medicine gets shared, the more we learn about ourselves and the more we learn about others, and the more we learn about what really affects people. So on the outside, it looks like all I'm doing is drumming, and we're doing meditation,
or hugging trees,
or hugging trees, or meditating. But in reality, what we're doing is we're understanding ourself, our authentic self, and what are the differences that block our authentic self from unfolding. And we understand how we grow up, and the trauma and the abuse that we have received really changes our nervous system and really changes our character. And in order for us to heal from that, we have to know what these things are, not logically, but subliminally. And we have to collapse those things. And so when I tell people, you need to book at least 6 sessions, this is not about making money. It's like, dude, I've done this for 5 years. Trust me, I know how long it takes. This is not about making money. This is about you need six sessions at least to collapse major stuff, one major agreement. And, you go through life and you have multiple agreements, and they have different layers. So one agreement can easily take 6 sessions, maybe even up to 10 sessions. It depends how deep it goes. But once you release that, it's like you have so much energy back and you have so much determination again. You make conscious decisions. It unfolds in such a way that you can only understand it once you've gone through it. That's why it's so difficult to describe what that feels like. I mean, it goes beyond just releasing pressure. When we do these sessions with other people, they tell us very frequently, hey, I feel like in my chest where I had that before, it's resolved itself. Or, if I had it in my heart because of love, it's released itself and I feel lighter. That was level 1. Imagine how much deeper that goes. It's like when you have that tree and the root that goes all the way down like 5 meters. And the basic agreement is down here, and you have multiple layers that go all the way up to the surface. You start with the surface first, and then you start working your way down. And the farther down you get, the deeper it goes, the more energy you release, the more self-determination you release. It's really cool.
Yeah. There's so many layers deep to everything.
Yeah. I mean...
Nothing is black and white.
No. That's why we have the rainbow, like from black to white, from no colors to all colors, right?
Yeah.
So another thing that people often ask me is, so if we know these things, why do we stay? Because the agreements maintain that dynamic of staying. So people remain in damaging relational dynamics or relationships for specific neurologically grounded agreement-driven reasons that make complete sense when they're viewed from the level at which they operate. So the examples are this. This is what love looks like. For the person whose primary love relationship matches these profiles, the emotional texture, the highs and the lows, the approval and withdrawal, the intensity has been encoded as a definition of love itself, because that's what we are taught. When we have the I'm not enough to do better, That's the abandoner's primary installation. Not I don't know it's damaging, rather I know and I believe nothing better is available to someone like me. Or, for instance, leaving means I have failed. Cultural and religious frameworks encode the agreement that surviving the relationship is morally superior to releasing it. Absolute
Societal,
BS.
too.
Yeah, societal. Yeah, well, that's cultural/societal and religious, right? The person who leaves is the one who failed. And that's absolute BS. Because the person who leaves, very often in relationships, is the target. Or is the target, but also the person that has suffered these different issues too. So there's a combination of different layers. It's not just one thing, it's a multitude of different things, right? So we all come with baggage. And the different types of baggages make us compatible or not compatible to others. And the really stupid thing about this is some of these issues, they only come up like 20, 30, 40 years later. And then you're here at the point where you're like, okay, well, this is what's going on, and now I have to make a decision. Am I going to stay in this relationship even though I know I can't really survive and I'm not happy? Or do I leave? But society's telling me if I leave, I'm the one who failed, even though, the agreements and the programs that are kicking off are not directly your fault. They're things that you've either learned, that you've experienced and haven't let go of, or there are other people that have those things and they're playing their agreements off on you and you're the target. Or a combination of both, right?
It's usually a combination of both, right?
Yeah, it is. So
it's a dance.
There's two more. So their destruction will be my fault. The abandoner's installation is working in the target in that case. So departure feels like an act of violence for which the target will be held responsible. And this is where, when I originally did the plan for this, I'm like, manipulators. I'm like, how am I going to tackle this? Does that really make sense? And the more I take a look at the psychological data, the psychology, different types of journals that are out there, and the psychosis of these things, and you start getting into what manipulation means. This is some really heavy stuff. And I never thought journey work would be an effective mechanism to release these things, but it is. And it's a reason why it takes multiple iterations of this to do that, because these things sit very, very deep. And the reason why talking about this to a clinician doesn't always work is because the agreements are down here in the subconscious, and the psychiatrist is talking at the higher level. So being logical and thinking logical, that's fine, but it doesn't solve this issue, because in order for me to reach this, I have to go down to that level, and I have to do the practices to get rid of that. Then I can go back up again, and it's cleaned, right? So think of your consciousness as like multiple layers. The deepest layer is the subconscious, where things are learned, and they are, part of our culture, part of our species, part of, all the things that we learned, and all the things that we can tap into energy-wise, whether it's cosmic or whether it's earthly or whether it's in the family or whether it's whatever. There's a multitude of different things that we can connect to in information. And the way that we process that, the way it builds up on top like a foundation, what we believe is true influences what is then true for our reality. Because those are our layers, our rules, our filters.
Yeah.
So when I talk about the human brain firewall, that's why I talk about that. There's multiple layers that we have to get rid of. You create one rule, it leads to the next rule, it leads to the next rule, it leads to the next filter. And then before you know it, you're trying to release stuff and it's blocked because the system has to be cleaned up.
Right.
Right? So the last one is familiar is safe. The nervous system's fundamental orientation toward the known, regardless of whether the known is beneficial or not. So the damage pattern feels like home, even if home was painful. So let's take this back to the courses that we teach, because I think a lot of people that listen to our podcast, they don't know that we teach this. And I think it's important to talk about this very briefly, right? You okay with that?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, so the Silver Crow method response is how each model addresses profile-generated damage. So with the profile context, the work of modules 3 to 12 is done with a quality of accuracy and compassion that produces faster, more complete, and more reliable results than what I've seen so far. I'm not saying it replaces, psychological clinicians or anything like that, because we're not doctors. I'm talking about the journey work aspect of this and that it works. So in Module 3, we talk about agreements. In Module 4, we talk about ego. In Module 5, we talk about the authentic self. In Module 7, we talk about entities, intrusions into the field, and stuff like that. In Module 9, we talk about protection. And in Module 12, we talk about suffering. So in Module 3 agreements, we identify and name the specific agreements that are installed by the profile. The named agreements lose 40% of their authority before any further work. In Module 4, ego, or ego, death of ego, the identity formed to survive the profile, the overachiever, narcissist, the people pleaser, the martyr, the hyper-independent abandoner, can be voluntarily loosened. In Module 5, the authentic self, we directly counter the abandoner's installation. You are not inadequate. You never were. That was installed as an operating instruction or system from another person's wound. It's not yours. It's not your responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
In Module 7, we talk about entities and intrusions. Removes the specific foreign energetic material, the obligation cord, the guilt cord, the reality distortion cord. This is the direct clearing work that no amount of cognitive insight can reach. And this is what makes the Silver Crow method so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
All of this is, by the way, copyrighted and patent pending. So, Module 9, protection. The daily field maintenance that prevents cleared material from being reinstalled in ongoing contact with that person. This is critical for clients who must maintain co-parenting contact with the profile. So why do we do field maintenance? Why do we do grounding? Because once we clear our own agreements, we lock ourselves up and we block any intrusions from coming into us because we've just cleared our house. We don't want to make it dirty again. So we block that stuff. We're not being cold. We're protecting our sanity. We're protecting our field. We're protecting our energy, ourself. And then in Module 12, suffering. That works directly with the borrowed suffering generated by those cords. Like, for instance, the guilt, the self-blame that persists even after a relationship has ended. It's not our fault. It's not our guilt to carry. Right?
Yes.
So again, understanding the external architecture of these profiles, it's not about condemning those who hurt us. It's about diagnosing with precision and compassion what was installed so that the work of release can be done accurately. Mm-hmm. Every profile has a wound at its root. The practitioner's work is not judgment, it is precision, and the compassion that precision makes possible. And that's why we do this stuff. That's why we do the podcast. That's why we do the training. This is a real system. This really helps people. And you and I, we've seen this so many times when we do these sessions. We say this is meditation, but there's a system behind this. There's a real, tangent, nascent system that has research in here that really works. And I want to make sure that if anyone listens to this podcast, go back to all the other ones. Use this vision about everything we've talked to about now. Why are agreements important? How do we build up all these discussions coming to this specific point? Mm-hmm. And this is just one example of profiles. There's a lot more.
There are.
Yeah. And you have mixtures of these too. That's when it gets really interesting. When you're like, you're looking for the different agreements, and then, people typically have like 5 to 10 major agreements that they have to work on. And then each one of those takes multiple sessions to get to take care of. And then once you do that and you release that stuff, then you start working on the next ones. So the interesting thing is, shamanic practitioners, everyone always thinks after we've done the training that we're done. But after 5+ years, now going on 6 years, there's still agreements that I find. And I mean, we've talked about some too. You see me
Yes.
sometimes because I'm walking around like a, I don't know, like I'm my own practitioner. When I like get
Yes.
into an argument with someone, like, oh, that's an agreement. Where'd that come from? Okay, I got a journey on that. Okay, let's get rid of that agreement. Okay, what happened?
Yeah.
Where's the cord? Where did that come from? Oh, it was from that past in my childhood.
Yeah. You're
And you
always
start
doing the work.
working on it.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes so automatic when you're a practitioner that you also work on
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And I
Yes.
think that's what makes us so effective because we do the
Because you're
work.
learning. Yeah.
Yeah, we do the work on ourselves first, and then we take what has worked for us, what we know works, what we know
Yeah.
is accurate, and we
It's
do that with
applied knowledge. Yeah.
exactly. You know, so if anyone's listening into this podcast and we invite you to a meditation to cord cutting, do yourself a favor and come to these things.
Yes.
There's a reason why we do this, and it's an easy, cheap way to get started.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that we do, the worksheets that we have, the follow-up discussions and Zooms that we have to do these things, this is all the system that we know works.
Mm-hmm.
This is not snake oil. This is not, one session and then you're healed. That's not how this works. If you've had years and years of agreements, it takes time to do these things, but you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long did we talk just now? I have no clue how long we were talking.
I don't know.
Probably like
Maybe
it's
half hour?
yeah, at least a half an hour, right? When did we
Yeah.
start? Like 10 after or something or what?
Perhaps. Yeah.
Okay. Something like 34 minutes or something, I'm guessing. Yeah. So the things that we talked about, what are some, what is something that resonates with you that you'd like to take out of this?
There's so much. There's so much. For myself, when I hear you identify all those different agreements and styles, I can see where I have been different roles, and people have been different roles to me in my life
Yeah.
at different times. Yeah.
Yeah. Same with me. I mean, it's like it's never like an easy thing where, oh well, it's just this or it's that, and yeah, I mean, understanding why we always talk about the agreements that they don't form in isolation, that they form in response to specific people or specific things in life, behaving in
Mm-hmm.
specific ways that the nervous system encodes as an operating system rule of how the world works. So everything we
Right.
experience gets converted into this is my understanding, and this is what I have to do X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
So when we understand who does the encoding to us, and what the profile of that person is, and whose behavior created the conditions for that agreement that we have formed, it's not about blame, it's about how do we diagnose that with precision, and how do we collapse that to be effective, and for it to be persistent, the change. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's not about condemning people. It's about how do we understand where our agreements come from. In order
Mm-hmm.
for us to understand it, we need to know the profiles that generate those agreements in us, where they come from and why they did what they did, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So just to wrap it up, those 5 profiles we talked about today, they described at its core a specific set of agreements that run in an automated survival program. Remember, we talked about
Mm-hmm.
patterns. So these agreements formed in most cases under conditions of childhood threat or relational damage, and they maintained for decades because they have been sufficient to keep the person functionally operational, even while producing significant suffering in the people around them.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding each profile as a survival architecture is not a moral failing. It allows the practitioner or us to work with the pattern precisely without generating the reactive energy that judgment produces.
Mm.
So we subtract ourselves as the observer, and as
Mm-hmm.
the observer we diagnose these things and try to make sure that we understand where they come from, and then we have the power to do the journey work and to identify the agreements and where they came from. So why are we talking about this? If you remember the last time we had our session, the meditation, we talked about, I created the worksheet for everyone that was there. And
Yes.
we talked about, where is this area coming from? And then the second one is, what is the agreement that you identified? And then the
Mm-hmm.
next thing is, well, where do the chords from? Picture those chords. Do they go to a specific person, an event, or something else?
Right.
This is why. because these things, they're produced by specific events, by people, etc. You know, so.
Yeah. And entities?
Yeah, so entities are, on one hand, energy.
Yeah.
Entities, on the other hand, can be something else. So there are instances when a parent somehow is still around, the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And in some extreme cases, when you have that, when the parent is extremely abusive, and that energy is still there, that could be oppressive, that could be possessive, and that can basically change the character too. So you not only have the extent of patterns, you have that energy once it intrudes your space, your field. It could be so overwhelming that it will short circuit your character or your traits for a short time while that energy overrides everything else in your system, and then it executes its own program. And very often when I observe people like that, they forget that they even act that way. They go into outer space, they go into another level. They're gone, their self is gone, and this other program is executing and running.
So it's probably
And
like a Jekyll and Hyde
yeah,
kind of situation.
yeah. I mean, that's how oppressive and possessive these energies can be. And if people think this is BS, I've seen this happen in real time. And I've seen people, they were the friendliest people, and then they changed to Jekyll. And I'm like, holy mackerel, what happened here? And it's like, okay, well, so what's the agreement that, where's this coming from? And there's sometimes instances where you have to go really deep to get rid of that intrusion. And that's when you take, in the shamanic medicine perspective, what we say is we go into things like psychopump to get the soul parts back, or that energy back, or that character, or that self-determination. And that's when you use the subconscious to go on the journey. And you not only get rid of the agreements and those things, I guess people will have to experience this. I'm not going to tell them everything about this, but you go into that journey and we identify those things and help take them out. And that's why it's so important. A lot of our work when we do these sessions is energetic work that we do in ourselves to protect ourselves against what we're working with. And it takes a lot of time to prepare for these things. The more intense these agreements are, the more work we have to do before it happens and after it happens, right? So there are times when you work with clients, before you even work with them, you have a splitting headache because you know something big is coming up. And after you're done with them, you can have a headache for like 1-2 days after, depending on what the person was and what the agreement is. That's how much energy sits in these things. I don't know how, but yeah, it's real.
It is.
So when people pretend to be Reiki practitioners and they work with this energy, it's like, do you know what you're doing? Do you do grounding? It's like I've talked to so many people that are that do massage, and then they claim that they're a master Reiki, a master Reiki or a practitioner. And I'm like, well, so what's your technique? What do you do before the session? What do you mean? I'm like, you don't do any grounding? It's like, you're working with energy, man. Whether it's journey work or whether it's whatever modality. If you're working with energy and you don't deflect, it sticks on you, and then you're gonna have a hell of a time getting rid of that stuff. Then you have to do Tai Chi Qigong, you have to do breathing exercises, you have to do something, yoga, you have to get rid of that energy and just send it back to where it came from, Yeah. So, really interesting discussion.
Yes. We covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, I hope people like it, so,
Yeah.
And this is just scratching the surface. There's so much more depth to this.
It's very likable.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I think we're done for now, I guess.
Yeah,
I think it was like a good 40 minutes or something, so I think that's enough.
Yeah. So, absolutely.
Right. Well, then we want to thank you for being here in this session.
Yes,
we went a lot deeper than we normally do. Hopefully it was understandable. If it was, send us an email at mike@silvercrowmethod.com or melanie@silvercrowmethod.com. Let us know what you think. We would like to see you in our meditation sessions because we go through this real work. So don't think just because we call something meditation that it's not real work. It is. And the people that have been here, they have gotten real results. So don't be bashful. Get your butt off the chair. Come to our sessions. Visit us at Mystic Crystals when it's on site, or on the Zoom sessions when it's a virtual
Yeah.
event. Sign up and come. There's no
Yes.
reason why you can't.
So May 2nd is our next cord cutting and agreements ceremony. That's at 11 a.m. at Mystic Crystals in Fairhaven.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also join virtually. The night before that at 7 p.m., we're doing a new moon ceremony at 7 p.m. Mystic Crystals as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you're at one of these sessions or both of these sessions, you will get a link to be able to do a one-on-one discovery call with me, and we will go through these things.
Wow.
So only
That's
if you're
very generous.
so only if you're at the meditation session. What was it, on Thursday, or when was that?
Friday.
On Friday,
Friday the 1st.
right? And then the second was on Saturday.
Yep, the 2nd.
So if you're on the Friday session or the Saturday session, then you can send me an email and I will send you a Zoom one-to-one session for about 15-20 minutes.
That's
We'll go
very
through
cool.
we'll go through that information. So only if you're there, only if you register. Otherwise,
Yeah,
you have to pay the normal price, which is more.
it's more.
Yeah.
All
So with
right.
that,
Well, yeah. Thank you, everyone. Please look out for our Facebook group. Join if you'd like to learn more about these shamanic practices
right,
and to be able to align with your divine sovereignty.
right, and join the group if you want to, discuss things too. We're looking for
Hmm.
people to be proactive, to be active in our groups. It's
Yeah.
important because it's not just
Community.
about reading things, it's about being a community and interacting. So when we talk
Hmm.
about these things, we want to know your opinion. And it's
Yeah.
better not to hear crickets because, we want to see what your opinion is. We want to have a dialogue with everyone in our group because we think that you're so important and we like the fact that you're there. So
Yeah.
if you do communicate with us, fantastic. If you don't, then sometimes we clean out the groups to make sure that we have the people that are active there. So at least message once
Yeah.
or twice or whatever, let us know
Yeah.
what you think.
Yes, and we're just switching over to private from public so that we can have a safe container for people who
Right,
want to be more active in the community and open up and discuss these things in private.
right. So everything that is discussed in the group stays in the group. There's no copying or anything else. It doesn't go out to the outside, and that's one of the agreements you have to, we expect everyone to do. I mean, that's the same in
Hmm.
every group that's on Facebook and
Yes.
all over the place. You need to respect the community, and we respect you, and we just think that's normal and that's fair. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for listening in. We hope that this medicine resonates with you. Take what resonates with you, leave the rest. And if it generates interest, which it should, then come to
Hmm.
one of our sessions on the second,
Yeah.
the first or the second, right? First or second, or second or third?
First and second, and then we
First and second.
have more, but we'll
We have more.
announce those dates the
Right.
next
So
podcast.
come on over. Yeah.
Come on over.
All right. All right. Bye.
Bye.